In the previous video, I looked at the whole idea of rights and how they really don't make much sense when we start looking at a major social, invisible, complex issue such as coronavirus. What I want to follow on from there is a theme I talked about during there, which is that rights are actually implemented by social responsibilities, mutual interlocking responsibilities. And a lot of the problems arise, particularly in what we might call a me-first culture. Rights are essentially personal. They're about me, that I have these rights. Whereas responsibilities to make them happen are complex interlocks across a societal realm. To make that happen, it depends also on the culture. And a culture that's focused only on the individual will have considerable difficulty in dealing with something that is actually complex and social. So we need to find the right balance. It's very contextual. In different circumstances, we want individuality. In other circumstances, we need people to line up. And a fixed idea such as rights really doesn't work for that reason. We need to focus instead on the responsibilities. Now, cultural terms, what we might think of as Western cultures, are very much focused on the individual. They're about democracy, they're about individual rights, individual focus. Eastern cultures tend to be much more we first, much more social. If you think of the relationship with the family that occurs in both Japanese and Chinese culture, that you get some of the same thing in, say, South American cultures. Latin America is very much a we first, but at the family level, not at the whole society level. So you've got to find the right balance for the context that's there. And that makes it an issue for enterprise architects. So that, for example, when we look at a me-first culture, what it risks falling into is what I call a pediarchy, ruled by, for, and on behalf of the most childish, where we reward people for being childish and punish people for being responsible. The danger with an Eastern type we-first culture is a strong tendency towards groupthink. I remember a colleague saying that he was asked to give asked a group in Malaysia, I think it was, to give an example of from their own experience of something that happened in business. And he couldn't get one, because in that culture, the leader is supposed to be the one who has all the answers and everyone else follows. So there were challenges there in both cases. And it's not that one is right and one is wrong. It's about getting the balance right. But the issue here is that, particularly when we're dealing with something like coronavirus, we're dealing with something that requires a social level response about social distancing, tracking, tracing, all those kinds of things, which clash directly with what we might think of as rights. But without doing it, we're in very real danger. So rights often make no sense here. We have to focus on the responsibilities. And one place that enterprise architects and business architects can really get some practice in on this to understand what's going on is to look at how this works in most businesses. Now, most organizations are very me first. Depends on the organization. Some have a culture that's got a strong we element, but particularly in Western business, it's very me first, very top down, very structured, very much. In fact, one of the most common fails we find is authority without responsibility. It gives rise to what I call insupeordination, with the opposite of insubordination, where the leader itself is useless. A lot of the management issues we get are because it is still very asymmetric. The subordinates are responsible to the leader, but the leader is responsible to no one, or certainly not responsible going that way. So we need to watch for those kind of inherent imbalances. We want to watch for fails on responsibilities, fails on relationships, fails on mutualities, fails on interlocks. Like the example I gave in another previous video, where a group of directors awarded themselves, executives, awarded themselves, I think it was $400 million, and then declared the company bankrupt. So there are some really serious issues that we need to identify what the drivers are and what the support is for the asymmetries. In particular, watch for things where someone's bonus, someone's personal rights to a bonus, is actually based on other people's behaviours. That often happens with a manager taking credit, and literal credit in the monetary sense, for other people's work. There are some very real issues here that we need to look at, and that we can use our experience in working with business, within a business, looking at the responsibility fails, the failures of the mutualities and interlocks, we can use those to help guide us how we're going to work on a full social issues that arise.